ill-fated event led the World Health Organization to adopt international health regulations. At present, due to COVID-19 pandemic, there are more than 3 million confirmed cases and more than 2 lakh deaths. And this number is rising exponentially all over the world. This outbreak has been declared a public health emergency of international concern by the World Health Organization, and under international health regulations, it requires immediate action. The measures, along with outbreak of viral infection, has resulted in significant human costs along with deep impact on global economy. The choice of the topic, obligation of state under international law for outbreak of pandemic, has a great relevance, as it is not far-fetched to think that the outreach put in place by states to address it may also affect relations regulated by public international law. Can state rely on any of the defense in the law of responsibility? Should they fail to perform obligations owed under international law to other actors as a result of their efforts to address any pandemic? Responsibility is necessary inference of a right, and all rights of international character involve international obligations as well. In 1646, Grotius coined a legal maxim: every fault creates the obligation to make good the losses. And this maxim is one of the core tenets of international law. On behalf of School of Law, Sharda University, I express my gratitude to Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha sir and Professor P.K. Malhotra sir for accepting our invitation. I want to wish all a very fruitful discussion and hope this webinar brings new insights and perspective. Now, I would like to invite our respective Dean sir to give a welcome address. Please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rohin Kaul. It is my
Thank you,
distinct privilege to welcome Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, Director, Indian Law Institute, and Professor P.K. Malhotra, former Secretary, Union Ministry of Law and Justice, and distinguished professor with the School of Law, Sharda University, in this webinar on obligations of state under international law for outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. I'm happy to submit that Sharda University School of Law is organizing a series of webinars with legal luminaries and key speakers for creation and dissemination of knowledge on contemporary issues. In this series, today we have organized this webinar. On March 2020, 11th March 2020, the world had the WHO declared COVID-19 a pandemic. Italy was the first country in Europe to impose a nationwide lockdown to slow Europe's worst COVID-19 outbreak. Before this, China has imposed similar measures affecting Hubei province. Similar measures have been adopted in India also, and which have been extended by further 2 weeks, as the coronavirus continues to wreak havoc all over the world. This pandemic is having a wider impact on the global economy and on supply chains and other commercial relations. To mitigate the effect of these measures on business, China has issued the force measure on to many of its companies to mitigate their liabilities. The rights according to states under international law imply responsibilities also. States are liable for breaches of their obligations provided that the breach is attributable to state itself. A state is responsible for the direct violations of international law, that is the breach of a treaty or the violation of another state's territory or rights. A state is also liable for breaches committed by its internal institutions. A state is not internationally responsible if the pandemic is a result of force majeure. That is a French word that implies greater force. Sometimes we take it as an act of God. That is beyond the state's control. A successful claim of force majeure must fulfill few conditions. That is, there must have been an unforeseen event. The event of force must be beyond the control of the state. The event must make it materially impossible to perform an obligation. The state must not have contributed to the situation, and the state must not have assumed the risk of the situation occurring. Now the question arises, that whether countries, especially USA, can sue China for COVID-19 damages. In this webinar, the distinguished speakers shall be discussing the state's liability for outbreak of pandemic under international law. With these words, I, on my own behalf and on behalf of the management, faculty, student, non-teaching staff, and the participants, once again welcome Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha and Professor P.K. Malhotra. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Now I would like to invite learned Professor P.K. Malhotra, sir, to share his views. Please, sir.
Good morning, friends.
Morning, sir.
Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, welcome you to this webinar. In fact, I being part of the Sharda University, consider myself to be one of the organizers, and I think all the participants who are participating in this webinar are more interested in listening to the views of Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha. But just to supplement what Professor Pradeep Kulshrestha, Dean of the School of Law of Sharda University, and Professor Kaul, who is coordinating this program, have said, I would just like to supplement it. You see, December 19 will not be remembered for good reasons. Because when in Wuhan, this COVID-19 started, in China, COVID-19 started, the kind of information which should have been disseminated to the world at large by China through WHO and through its own sources, probably the information was not given. Now it is surprising, and I think many heads of the states have also said that in China itself, Wuhan was badly affected, but many of the major cities of China were not affected by this pandemic. But countries in Europe and USA were affected to a very great extent. Now, as on today, as Rohin was also telling, I think the people who are affected by this virus, its number is 3. I think if I correctly remember, it is 3.5 million. I think it's 3.5 million, and the deaths which have taken place is about 235,000. And India itself, which of course, though little late in implementing, but was much advanced as compared to many of the European and American and America, I think the total number of people affected in our country, in spite of the best efforts made by the government and lockdown being declared throughout the country, the number of the persons who have affected here has exceeded 37,000. And the deaths which have taken place, if I correctly remember the figure which I read today morning in the newspaper, it was 1,222. Now, if such kind of pandemic take place, what is the obligation of the organizations under the United Nations, more particularly the WHO, World Health Organization, and the states which are in the know of this pandemic and the effect it is going to have on the public as well as the world economy? Were due precautions taken? Were the preventive measures which were required to be taken by WHO and the country from which this virus has emanated, have they taken those kind of precautions? And what was their response? Did they inform the concerned people who were really going to be affected? Because this virus is an unseen enemy. Nobody has seen it. And the kind of impact it will have on the people was not known to others unless the country which was badly affected by it had informed and sounded the World Health Organization, other agencies, and the people where migration was at a large extent, to a great extent. I think this kind of steps, had they been taken timely, probably the damage could have been controlled. Now, so far as the WHO is concerned, it has international health regulations and in place, and every government, after getting a feedback from the WHO, was required to take necessary measures to control this damage. Professor Kulshrestha mentioned about the force measure, which is with regard to the economic activities which have been adversely affected and the trade which has been affected world over. I think that is one of the very important issue which will emerge and will be giving rise to a lot of litigation world over. Now, frankly speaking, straight away saying that it invites a force measure, will it be a good decision? I think that's a point to be debated. Will COVID-19 will end up in force measure, or there are other ways and means to control the damage and to see that the interest of the parties are not adversely affected? I'm happy to say that as compared to US or most of the European countries, probably India's response to this endemic has been quite quick, and has been the people also by and large have cooperated with the direction given by the government. Insofar as the local laws are concerned or the local position is concerned, I will say that the Disaster Management Act, which was passed by the Parliament, empowers the government to issue number of directions at the apex level, at the central level, at the state level, and to monitor this kind of situation at the district level, so that the damage done to the public is to the bare minimum. Now, once you are dealing with an unseen enemy, as I said, and was it not proper on the part of China to disseminate that information to WHO, and further for the WHO to inform the world as to what kind of measures they are supposed to take? I think they have failed in discharging their duty, and therefore, I understand even some of the Indian lawyers have filed certain petitions claiming damages against China in the World Court. I think we will have to see how it goes on, whether it is maintainable or not maintainable, what kind of damages can be awarded in this case. But more important is what measures the government are supposed to take to address this kind of crisis in the light of the situation which is prevailing, and also analyze the legal framework. And also this is an opportunity to suggest a way ahead to ensure that damage is controlled, it is kept to the minimum in case this arises in future. Now, this has opened a new area so far as the economy is concerned, so far as the use of, I mean, this is just incidental. Every crisis gives you new opportunities, new avenues. I think in the education sector also, we are now using more and more information and communication technology, and which is the way forward. I think this is going to be a new norm in the future. Like take, for example, we used to hold seminars every now and then, and a lot of time used to be consumed in traveling, calling the people. Now in this webinar, which has become more popular method of communicating because of this disease, and to stop spread of this disease, I think that is going to be order of the day. Probably this is a good sign. But good sign apart, we have to examine what are the issues which have arisen out of it, whether the international agencies as well as the concerned states have taken the necessary precautions, and what action can be initiated against them so that this kind of situation doesn't occur in future. I think I just wanted to make this opening remarks before we invite Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, who is the key speaker of the day on this issue, very important issue with regard to obligation of the state law for dealing with this pandemic. Thank you, Professor Manoj Sinha, for joining us and sparing time, your valuable time for this important discussion. And I welcome all the participants to this important discussion. Obviously, we will be having a question answer session also. And if case there are certain issues, I'm sure Professor Manoj Sinha will be answering it. And if need be, I can also give a response to that. Thank you, Professor Pradeep. Thank you, Professor Manoj Sinha.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable comments. Now, I would like to invite Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, sir, to enlighten us all with his views. Please, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Pradeep Kulpresta, Professor P.K. Malhotra, and all the participants, those who are there in the online. It's a great pleasure for me personally when I have been invited to speak on a particular topic, Pradeep ji spoke to me and said obligation of the states under international law for outbreak of pandemic. So what obligation the state has to deal with the pandemic? That is the point I'm going to focus. What I have understood, there are two aspects which, like Professor Pradeep and Professor P.K. Malhotra and other speakers also highlighted. The two aspects, obligation and state responsibility. State responsibility also there. And as we know that, which correctly pointed by the Professor Pradeep, is this, that China is going to, one of exception for the, under the International Law Commission on article on the responsibility of the state for international wrongful acts that force majeure, state like state of necessity, state distress, and other that is Article 23 of the state responsibility talks about that, and how China has used. So that question has to be removed. But my focus is primarily on the obligation. When we look into the obligation status, before I start obligation, I'll focus on 2-3 points which previous speakers also highlighted. The first is, and according to today, we have more than 3 million, around 32 lakh people were affected by the COVID-19. And there are like, 250,000 people have already died, around to like 37, 38. And out of 3 million, means 30 lakhs, 10 lakhs from the United States and remaining from the other European states. This is the one. The second important point, the role of WHO, because it's a health issue. Health issue and WHO plays very important role. And somehow, WHO, it gives an impression. Now we started talking about the responsibility. We all started accusing the responsibility for the spreading COVID-19 throughout the world. That has to be seen how the states, like the respective domestic court or international court, respond to the cases which will come or which will appear before these respective adjudicatory bodies. The response of WHO was a little bit slow in the entire crisis. The WHO, the first time. All right, can you hear me, no? On 30th January 2020, International WHO has declared public health emergency of international concern. If you look into the international health regulations of 2005, that is the state has an obligation to notify according to Article 6. According to the Article 6, if some kind of infectious disease, serious disease, which can affect the public emergency within 24 hours. In case of the COVID-19, what we are seeing, what we are witnessing, that this was delayed. It was first time announced on the 30th January 2020. And pandemic was officially declared by the World Health Organization on the 30th March 2011. China had an idea. China, almost this particular first cases were appeared in month of November. Had this information appeared to the WHO, to the other nations, they could have prepared much better what they are doing today. So that's some kind of the people are questioning the role of WHO, and particularly the United States is very vocal. Trump is very vocal. Trump, in fact, they have gone beyond and they have withdrawn the financial assistance, 500 million they give to the WHO. And he is very critical to WHO. And in fact, Trump yesterday said WHO has become public relation office of the China. So they are functioning like a public relation. Trump has also said in one of his speeches that if COVID-19 is spread is a mistake, if China has done a mistake, so mistake is a mistake, so no problem. If it had been done deliberately, China has to face consequences. So there is a threat also on part of on the part of the Chinese government. So what we see the role of the WHO little bit is not according to the international health regulation. It seems China or like WHO is trying to help or delay the to help Chinese government in this particular case. Now come to the so first we have international regulations, that is an international health regulation of 2005, that is important, particularly Article 5, Article 6 and series of other articles of international health regulation is there. Second important aspect is related with the I see this obligation. So we have to find out obligation. So when we talk about the obligation, so basically what we are looking for, law of cooperation. Law of cooperation. Earlier, it has been more of law of existence, peaceful existence, peaceful existence. Law of cooperation, where each state cooperate with each other, to help to resolve any kind of crisis. You can imagine, like India is competent, India has resources, number of other European states have resources, but still they are finding so much problem to deal with this pandemic at present. And somehow in African continent, the process of spreading of COVID-19 little bit delayed compared to the other parts of the world. It is gradually if it picks up, then it will be very difficult. And if we sit here, or if all states sit here, like in their respective jurisdiction, and basically we are not bothered about the African countries, then you can imagine what will be the scenario. Because African countries, they don't have any sufficient number of ventilators, they don't have sufficient number of intensive care units, they don't have public protection equipment PPE. There are medicines, a lot of problems. So cooperation is needed desperately for the poor and developing nations of Asian and African countries. They desperately will look, and then that role of states and role of international institutions will be very prominent, and they have to play law of cooperation. The dependence of the African nations will be very high. Dependence on the Asian states will also, for some kind of cooperation, very high. Whether international instruments, whether international human rights instruments, whether other treaties, they talks about the the same thing. We don't know why WHO, why they, now being recorded. So WHO is doing the same thing. So there's a possibility, and how we have to wait and watch. However, in domestic court, like class legislation, many states in the United States have filed. Whether China is bothered about those litigations, domestic litigations regarding building accusing China is responsible for the spread of COVID-19. China is not bothered, but how international court of justice reacts, that we have to see. If any state decides to, no state has said we are going to take this matter to the international court of justice.
Ji, sir.
It is a little bit difficult. The delay can be huge again.
Sir, Professor P.T. Saxena is from Babu Banarsidass University. I think it's Lucknow University, from Lucknow. Yeah. She is asking Professor Sinha, thank you for very much for informative lecture. Your view on new economic order post COVID-19. New world order.
New economic order.
New economic, yeah.
How so this is very first when this will be over. So we see it may take 1 year, 2 years, something. So first we how all states will finally will say virus will not go, but some kind of treatment, some kind of vaccine will be there. Now in new international opinion, at least country like India will play very important. So this crisis has also given an opportunity to establish some of the states who believe in the democracy, who believe in transparency, who believe in a better governance, rule of law, and every other. Because India and other countries European countries, of course they do. But I see in future, which government is also contemplating, once the crisis is over, already many companies have expressed their interest to shift to the Indian territory. Because they have realized China can be brutal. When it comes to their own interest, they can be brutal and they can suppress everything. As you, Professor, you have mentioned they are going to use force measure against, like, to help their own company. So China will not be fair. China will not create a, like, level playing field. But in future, I believe new international economic order, not in 1970, but new international economic order of 2022. I take 2 years margin. India and countries like other, like, those who believe in this fundamental like principles, good governance, rule of law, and democracy, people's participation, transparency, accountability, those states will attract more investment, not the states which believe in the suppressing the rights of the labor rights and giving the false incentive to the foreign companies. So these fundamental democracy will play very important role in attracting economy. So I see that there is a, like, we have to start from the scratch. Again, we have to build up. It may take a couple of years, but there is a great future for a country like India and other those who believe in democracy and freedom.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Mr. Namit Kumar Srivastava, he is Assistant Professor at School of Law, Sharda University. He is asking what shall be the impact on globalization of this COVID and free trade, and how international law shall deal with the same.
Could you repeat it once?
So he's asking what, according to you, will be the course of globalization and free trade post COVID-19, and how international law shall deal with the new situation.
So globalization, like, we see this entire, when we start, the first time we are seeing, it's already there. Globalization to resolve this kind of problem always there, but it has not been applied the way it has been articulated under the various international covenants and even under the United Nations Charter. So when we talk about the globalization, we teach globalization, we focus more on the economic globalization. But I see there is not only in the economic globalization, health also issue which needs some cooperation. Globalization can help in resolving issues health related issues. Globalization can play very important role. And of course, international law in coming days, the international law which are already there will be more active. The application of the international law will increase significantly. Laws of cooperation will become very paramount, important, and interdependence will significantly increase. The realization. So realization is already there, but we generally consider in the field of investment, in the field of economics, in the field of communication. The world is dependent upon the information technology, depend on the economic aspect, but not on the other aspect. But I think states are questioned, state will be asked, the human rights record, human rights issues, that will also play in a true sense in the coming days in the globalization. And of course, and as I said, the earlier question which Professor P.C. has asked, that most important, uh, most important aspect will be considered by in the globalization, in the new globalization, especially the new state which will begin soon. It's a democracy, it's a good government, it's the rule of law, respect of the human rights. That will play very important role. And maybe many states will be eliminated, from this purpose.
Professor P.T. Saxena is from Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar, Central University, Lucknow.
She's been a good friend of us and my friends. Good afternoon, P.T.
Sir, Preeti Mishra is asking whom sir you see as the next superpower after this COVID-19? China or US perhaps?
China, people are, but I think the US will not, US is a big power from the First World War, Second World War. World War has changed, World War shifted from the from the Allied power during the time United States intervened. That happened in the First World War, that happened in the Second World War, and that will also. United States will not allow to go the power which it has enjoyed for many years. They only fear China may become economic power. But there will be a lot of target attack on China, calculated attack on the China, not like warfare or something, but economic economic isolation will take place. No doubt, economic isolation will take place, and US will be very important. It's very difficult, and somewhere US will also try to break the friendship of China and Russia, or some closeness between China and Russia. So, with the help of the NATO members, US and other European states, United States will try to isolate China. There is a speculation, many people will say that because economically China is weak economically, but whether it's going to be military, whether their dictate will run large in coming years, it seems little bit, in my personal view, it seems very difficult because China has other issues also there, human rights, lot of other factors are there. So I feel US has to struggle hard. US has US has to keep a close eye on this and work for that. If US become very lethargic, okay, we are the superpower, then it may swoop out in the United States, may go to the Russia, may go to the China. It's not China, but I believe US will do its best because this is the election year. Trump will be very active. He's quite different from the Obama. He is assertive. He's making a statement. He's fearless. Though it's not liked by many people, but some way the lost glory of the United States, which happened in time of Obama, has been regained by the Trump. More nationalistic. So he will try to see, and he'll work for that because in the coming election, this will play a very important role. So this, I believe that US will continue. It's like a long history. US will continue. Not China will become superpower. Many states will not accept China.
And sir, I think values of democracy, liberties, and fundamental rights will also help US in continuing its position.
Maybe China can emerge economically strong power, but same time they have a huge population of poor people also. So there will be always there. But
Professor Sena, I would like to make a comment here. You have very rightly said that going by the present situation, the US may like to isolate China. But knowing fully what the China is, the role being played by the China in the economy, world economy, and more particularly, I think it has got, take for example, in India itself, that in spite of the fact that most of the people say that Chinese good quality is not good, we don't want to import, but still almost 17 to 18% of the import in India is from China. And same thing is true about other countries also, including the US. The kind of role which China is playing in the world economy, probably it will be very difficult to ignore China. Yes, some of the multinational companies are moving out of China, and probably it will be a good opportunity for India to grab, because we always say that this is a country where we have rule of law, we follow the governance principle, we have the transparency, but still, I think the latest figure which I read in the newspaper was that many countries are not coming to India, but they are moving elsewhere. So obviously the scenario is going to change, economy is going to change, but will it really bring down the role which China is playing in the world economy? I think only time will tell. As on today, it will be very difficult to say anything on this.
No, sir, I agree with you what you have said. My answer was more on the who will become superpower, whether United States will remain a superpower. Superpower, when we discuss superpower, we have to take note of the others, economic power, military power, rule of law, and other aspects, and how that state plays important role in the international relations. How the other states consider that particular state holds certain power. So economically, what you are saying, I totally agree. But militarily and whether China will be in a position to control both, whether China will also be in a position to attract most of the states in their side. The entire Western European countries, I little bit doubt, the entire Western European countries, large number of African countries, large number of Asian countries will go towards the other bloc, whosoever comes. I'm not saying United States is there. But very few, very handful of states in there. of course, the economic supremacy is there. The economic supremacy of the United States, sorry, in the China is little bit like in danger. So how they like very important, like, how they are going to play the role in coming days, and that, as you correctly pointed out, sir, that we have to wait and watch. So for some time we have to wait and watch. But I think there is superpower, in general superpower. You remove the economic power, whether US will come like consider as a superpower, China for all purposes, not only for the economic purposes. Whether United
Yes.
States will consider power or China will consider a superpower. That is point I would
I agree. I agree.
Sir,
Okay.
Dr. Rohin Kaul is asking, what challenges post COVID-19 will pose to the international educators? So, Dr. Rohin Kaul is asking, what challenges post COVID will pose to the international education?
Education.
Yes, sir.
Maybe something will go to the WTO, trade-related disputes, or some kind of what you say, the force majeure. A lot of investment will be like in a bad, so people will run from here and there. But whether the major adjudicatory body, which I see, International Court of Justice, whether International Court of Justice will try to look into some new aspects. Like, if India wants to go to the International Court of Justice, they can go and blame China or something is there that is possible. But whether the role of the major adjudicatory body, but of course in the investment, in the case of the WTO, the new kind of institutions will emerge where companies will not be able to carry out their businesses effectively. Investments are in the danger. There are a lot of even arbitration, international arbitration, lot of aspects come related with the financial post story. But traditional adjudication will remain more or less same. Traditional adjudication remains same. But there is a possibility. There is a possibility if just I'm speculating. There is a possibility intentional killing. That intentional, willful killing. Like what China has done is say intentional because this virus has killed large number of people. Whether this act of China can qualify for the crimes against humanity, whether the adjudicatory body take note of that and say that China is responsible for death of 3 million people in the world, and it's a crime against humanity and genocide. So there is a possibility to look into the Rome Statute under the International Criminal Court to qualify the bill if China has done intentionally with the support of state machinery, spread the COVID-19, which ultimately killed large number of people. If you look into the definition of the crimes against humanity, it can come under that. So the moment it's like, so there is a possibility, I think there is an element which can be before the International Criminal Court. Rest of the things related with the trade and other investment and arbitration that will increase, of course, this COVID-19.
Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Rohin Kaul, you may propose
Yes.
vote of thanks.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir, for your in-depth insights.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I convey my thanks to our respected Dean, sir, for providing me opportunity to put forward a vote of thanks. On behalf of School of Law, Sharda University, I once again express my gratitude to Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, sir, and Professor P.K. Malhotra, sir, for providing comprehensive insights on the topic and acknowledging us to various perspectives and perspectives. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sinha, for sparing time and participating. It was
Thank you.
really very comprehensive and enjoyable.
Thank
Wonderful,
you
sir.
very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.